I'll tell you what shattered is Hillary Clinton's dreams to be El Presidente. If WikiLeaks head Julian Assange makes good on his claim that he's going to release information very, very soon that will cause Hillary to be indicted for sure. He's normally pretty conservative about what he says. Now, we had him on about a week and a half ago, and then a few days after, William Binney, former leader of the National Security Agency, the guy that actually ran it, not the political head, but the civilian general that actually ran it, famous codebreaker, he went on Aaron Klein's show on WABC in New York with WorldNet Daily, and Breitbart also picked it up and broke down the fact, NSA whistleblower, agency has all of Clinton's deleted emails. And he's got some of the Snowden leaks here that have been made public that we're going to be going over today for radio listeners and TV viewers. Radio listeners will want to go to Infowars.com/show if you want to be able to see this presentation, not just listen to it. But William Binney joins us. There's a new film coming out in a few months, agoodamerican.org. We have the trailer of that we're going to be playing, exposefacts.org as well. He is the former technical leader of the intelligence with the NSA before becoming a whistleblower in late 2001. And he was SWAT team rated, you name it, for going to Congress, which you're supposed to do, to talk about how they were illegally gathering citizens' data. And he's been a great analyst helping the public with human research into exactly how high this power grab and this treason and this boondoggle goes. So he joins us to discuss all this and more. Mr. Binney, thank you for coming on.
Well, it's good to be with you again, Alex.
Wow, well, I wish I would have asked the big question, but I'd like you to get back into it and flesh it out for us today, as you've agreed to do, proving for us, explaining to us exactly why you know, as the guy that designed most of it, that indeed they do have all of Hillary's deleted 33,000 emails. William Binney.
It's not really that they've hacked into the server or the DNC server or Hillary's server. They've got over, in the United States in the Fairview program, they have over 100 taps on the fiber network in the United States. And they're doing just like Mark Klein exposed the one facility, one of the 100, in the San Francisco facility, where they have Naris devices taking everything off the line. So that's what's going on.
So to explain, they put gates in front of it and then copy it and scoop it all up before it ever gets where it's going.
That's right. That's exactly right. As it passes down the line from all the service providers or all the telephone companies, they capture that as it's passing down the fiber network. And the telecommunications companies are helping them do that. The ones that run the fibers, they allow them to come in and tap the thing. That's what Mark Klein exposed in the AT&T facility in San Francisco. But that's only one of the almost 100 that they have. And it captures tens of gigabits of data. So at each site. So that means that's how they acquire the data. And then they're storing it in places like the Bluffdale facility that they had to build because they were collecting so much. And now they're building another facility on Fort Meade that's almost 3 times that size. It's 2.8 million square feet. So that's planning for the future because they're continuing to collect so much data on everybody. And then it goes into the databases inside NSA, and some of the material with the PRISM program and the NSA programs are all shown in that how PRISM data goes into it. But it's also all other data, like off the upstream program, which are the fiber taps. All that data goes into the same programs internally in NSA. And that graphs the data and indexes it so that people like the FBI and the CIA can go directly into those databases and pull information out. So they've captured not just the data on Hillary, but on everybody else, too. That's why I was calling this originally J. Edgar Hoover on super steroids, because this gives them the ability to blackmail anybody.
William Binney is our guest, former leader of the NSA, the guy that actually ran it, one of their top code breakers in history, according to even the NSA's fact pages. Mr. Binney, specifically on Hillary, folks are saying, and you've pointed out, hey, they've got copies of it, they grabbed it. Obviously, other intelligence agencies have been closely watching her. Other governments were. Is there any estimation or guesstimation on how many agencies here or also foreign governments, corporations, you name it, would have been targeting her and scooping up the Secretary of State's data?
Well, I mean, for governments, I mean, every government in the world would try to acquire data on her to the extent that they were able to do it. I would think certainly most of the European countries, Israel, Russia, China, I'm sure.
And we lost William Binney. That happens a lot when he's on with us. He says it happens a lot on other shows. When he's doing shows, we've had dinner. He's been down here to visit us. It's like a James Bond movie when you're sitting there going in to have dinner with William Binney with your family, and you notice there's guys following you in. Mr. Binney, you're back. I'm sorry. You were. Please continue.
Well, I was just saying that virtually every advanced country in the world was probably looking at her and trying to find or get information on her. So I would think that probably on the order of 50 to 100 countries would be trying to tap into her data.
And obviously, as a Secretary of State and somebody who'd been involved in intelligence since she was in college, we now know they were CIA, her and Bill, she knows this. So why would she have a separate server? Why would she do something like this? I mean, it's crazy.
Well, if you're the type of person that likes to keep everything away from everybody and not have anybody know what you're doing, that's the kind of thing you do. Wow. And if you're naive enough to think that you can do that in private, then you still do. Then that's the kind of thing you do. So I don't think she is technically, indoctrinated or understands the technology that much. And I think she wants to. From where I sit, I just say I thought she wanted to keep everything away from anybody, even in violation of the Records Act for the government.
Sure, and her Obama's former head of the Environmental Protection Agency had to step down when she got caught with a Gnome de Plume and another server and a whole other parallel system she was using. Expanding on this, Mr. Binney, I've always thought a lot of people that are being charged with murder or other crimes, if they could use the NSA data to prove that they were indeed somewhere else when the government claimed they were another place, do you think we're going to start seeing court challenges more and more where people are going to demand NSA data for defenses in trial?
It certainly should. I mean, even Senator Feinstein went back in 2013 when they were trying to unfund the NSA efforts, shortly after the initial Snowden releases. Senator Feinstein went on the floor of the Senate and said, this is speaking about the domestic spying program. She said, this is such a valuable program. We use it to put hundreds of people in jail every year. Well, I mean, how many thousands of people went to jail based on the NSA material, but was never told it was from NSA? Why? Because it's not admissible in a court of law. So what they did was they did a parallel construction with the FBI or the federal agents did. They did a parallel construction to find data on them that would basically replicate the data from NSA and then substitute that in a court of law. So that's perjury, okay? That's also denying the defendant the right to discover, challenge discovery. And so all of those cases should be thrown out of court because of what they did. And certainly any future case could say there may be something in there. They could do a FOIA or discovery type of request to find information about them to show that. Sure, absolutely.
What is your knowledge of this new parallel system where Homeland Security, but also private corporations, but also local governments are, in some cases, even in small jurisdictions, buying up to 300 Stingrays? For those that don't know, obviously you know, Mr. Binney, are small cell phone tower arrays that basically steal the data, similar to Google cars that have been caught doing it worldwide. I mean, there seems to be not just government, but like a gold rush, an orgy of data theft by Fortune 100 tech companies, by local governments. I mean, this just sounds like Pandora's box has been opened. What is your view on what they're using all of these systems for?
Well, I know in the case of the government, they have a program called Treasure Map. And part of the idea of the Treasure Map was to map every device on the network every minute of every day. That means phones, your computers. servers, landline phones, satellite phones, everything, so that they want to know where everyone in the world is every minute of every day. And that's certainly, the program's called Treasure Map, one word. And if your audience would like to Google it, all they have to do is Google NSA space Treasure Map, and they'll get to read all about it. And it is using various things like traceroute and things like that to map the communications of everybody on the planet.
And, of course, we can thank Mr. Snowden for this. We might spend a minute on that, Mr. Benning.
Yes, that's exactly where this data came from, yes. I mean, otherwise we would not know.
What do you make of Mr. Snowden? I think he's a hero.
I say he did an absolutely public service for mostly everybody in the world. The problem is that when you see what should happen to him, well, he stole government property, so he should be indicted for stealing government property. But all these people who have violated the law put him in a position to make a decision about that. And that's coming out in his movie, too. That's coming up in Snowden. It'll show you the dilemma he was in and the kind of things that he had to discuss.
Well, that's right. Let's give him 6 months for stealing some data, and then let's give the people that engage in mass, architecture to overthrow the republic. Let's charge them with treason.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly my view of it. It is treason against the founding principles of this country.
Damn right.
They are subverting the Constitution, scrapping it. There's a method to do that. If you want to change the Constitution, you put an amendment into the floor of the Congress, get them to pass it, then circulate it around the states for ratification. And if 75% of the states ratify it, you're in business. You change the
And let's expand on that. As you pointed out, for less than $20 million, and I want you to recap this, sir, William Benning, former head of the NSA joining us, former head of technical, former leaders, as they called it, the guy that actually ran it, not the Politico that ran around like Hayden. You look at this, and clearly we're totally infiltrated by all sorts of foreign governments. Hillary's selling uranium to the Russians, giving them weapons secrets, but that's okay because, she's got a political sign-off. Meanwhile, they're saying Trump's a Russian agent because he doesn't want to have war with them. You've got all these special interests in here. We're totally penetrated by the communist Chinese. They tell Hollywood what movies they can put out. There's so much data being grabbed that all these foreign interests are able to get into these data caches now, and we're being penetrated, as you've talked about it years ago, but is now admitted by the amount of data we have, that all these spy grids actually is distributing all the data to allow it to be stolen. Clearly, the people doing this are the ones threatening our national security.
Yes. Yeah, and for example, one of the points I made on the Fox News when I was on there the other day, this attack that was used against the DNC server, for example, was a well-known attack previously used by Russian hackers. Well, if it's a well-known attack, that means many people know about it, and most of the services that you purchase to protect your networks should already have software to combat it and protect you against it, but they didn't. So, and part of the background is that NSA has two parts, the defense and offense. The offense likes to look into things to read what everybody's doing. The defense is supposed to protect us, right, from people looking in. Well, the problem is that if the offense finds a weakness in a system that allows them to look in, they won't tell the defense because they'll fix it. And if they fix it, the window for the offense will close. See, so they have a vested interest in keeping that window open so they can see into what people are saying and doing. Whereas the defense, being not aware of the weakness, doesn't fix it. So that leaves everybody out here, all of us. That's how OPM got hacked, and all of them, all these hacks are coming in because they're all defenseless against this stuff. So the point is, by doing that, everybody's exposed and vulnerable.
Where do you see the situation going? Obviously, the Russians aren't the only technically competent country. I think you mentioned there's at least 50 or more nations that are very competent, maybe 100. I mean, just to always blame the Russians tacitly took credit for exposing the UN hack where they were hiding the decline of temperature and to push a carbon tax. So I say if the Russians are exposing fraud by the UN, more power to them. I hope hackers expose Russian fraud and, vice versa, Japanese fraud, American fraud. I mean, if it's fraud, changing the subject from the hacker away from the fraud. It's like saying, well, Hillary sent people to attack Trump rallies dressed as Bernie Sanders supporters, but maybe the Russians did it. Look, I don't care. It's about the information. But separately, talking to a lot of sources, I wanted to ask you this. There's overwhelming evidence that we've got good people as contractors, not just Snowden, and good people in the military. I mean, if 90% of the military that I talk to, Mr. Benny, is awake to what's happening and against this whole police state and against Hillary Clinton, and if almost all the police I talk to and federal agents, you name it, from Secret Service to FBI, are mainly libertarians. They're bipartisan. They're not Republican or Democrat. They're upset about the state of the country. Then it's not fair to just always attribute it to the Russians when I think there's a lot of evidence pointing towards corporate leaks, government leaks here domestically. Can you speak to the provenance of these leaks and where you think they're coming from? And could they be coming from the U.S. intelligence community or an ally?
Yes, and one of the things that really concerns me is there's a lot of people in here who don't think very well of the Russians and would like to use them to start a second Cold War, because especially in the military-industrial complex, because that means trillions of dollars of business over time. I mean, there's an awful lot of money they have an opportunity to gain if they can start a second Cold War. So I think you need to be, you need to be skeptical of our military-industrial complex. That's what President Eisenhower warned us about in 1961 when he was leaving office. He warned us about this. And these are the kinds of things that motivate them, is the opportunity to make more money. And if they can keep these perpetual wars going, that's the thing that helps them make money. So, I just see that the commercial companies are so embedded in vested interests that they have a motive to direct things a certain way.
Well, Mr. Benny, former leader of the NSA, isn't that the trillion-pound elephant in the room? That we think about Russians or Chinese, and sure, they're doing stuff, we need to watch them. But what about multinational corporations that are bigger than most governments that just drift around? They're doing stuff for the Russians, the Chinese, us, South Africans, the UK. I mean, that's who should be watched, and no one's even looking at them.
Yeah, that's right. And they're all set up to fleece everybody of every penny they can get.
And destroy our sovereignty. Yeah. Start a war with the Russians to sell more weapons. There'll be nowhere to spend the damn money. In fact, since you mentioned that, one of the top Russian scholars in the United States, I mean, it's undisputed, Stephen Cohen, shuts down CNN host. And again, this guy heads up the entire, department at a major university. Here he is on CNN talking about this new Cold War. And this guy's not even a Trump supporter, but he's telling it like it is. Here's that clip.
Professor Cohen, does Vladimir Putin indeed have a dog in our U.S. fight?
Vladimir Putin wants to end the new Cold War, and so do I. Let me say I have no ties to the Trump campaign or the Clinton campaign. But if I were to write your headline for you today, I tried on the way down here. We're in a new and more dangerous Cold War with Russia. We're approaching a Cuban Missile Crisis nuclear confrontation with Russia, both along Russia's borders and possibly over Syria. There is absolutely no discussion, no debate about this in the American media. Then along comes unexpectedly Donald Trump, who says something that suggests he wants to end the new Cold War, cooperate with Russia in various places, what we used to call détente. And now, astonishingly, the media is full of what only can be called neo-McCarthyite charges that he's a Russian agent, that he's a Manchurian candidate, that he's Putin's client. So the real danger is what's being done to our own political process. This is the moment when there should be, in a presidential year, a debate, because Mrs. Clinton's position on Russia seems to be very different, has been a long time. Trump speaks elliptically. You got to piece together what he says, but he seems to want a new American policy toward Russia. And considering the danger, I think we as American citizens deserve that debate and not what will be given in the media today. I end by saying that these reckless branding of Trump as a Russian agent, most of it is coming from the Clinton campaign, and they really need to stop.
All right. That's a liberal, by the way, and he's Princeton, NYU. I mean, there you go, William Benny.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with all of what he was saying there. I mean, the whole idea...
And by the way, you're a guy credited, you don't want to brag, You broke the Russian codes. You helped defeat them. And they gave you secret medals. I know you don't want to talk about this, but, I mean, you fought the Russians. You're not some Russian spy.
No, in fact, but if you looked at the situation of what's happening, so actually we started and initiated certain things that made them react the way they did. I mean, we actually had a bloodless coup that we initiated or assisted in the Ukraine. And then we tried to move NATO into the Ukraine when we had a verbal agreement with the Russians before that we wouldn't do that. So you can.
And we broke the perestroika deal to let, as long as they didn't expand back, we wouldn't expand. Exactly.
Exactly, yeah. And so what that meant was we were treating them like a threat, and so they started acting like one. But let's not be. Yeah,
when you move nuclear cruise missiles up to somebody's border, they start getting upset.
Yeah, and let's not be confused. They didn't start this. We did.
Samantha Powers and a bunch of weirdo women who've never been in the military started it. And it's not that I'm against women, but it really is. It smells of Armageddon when you got a bunch of weird women and liberals hopping around messing with the Russians. It's just, I mean, Napoleon got his ass kicked, so did Hitler, and they were warriors. You people are a joke. Do 10 more minutes with William Binney, then I've got an in-depth report with Putin basically saying we're moving towards nuclear war and new clips coming up. William Binney's our guest. Stay with us.
Talk show host is Alex Jones. He's a conspiracy theorist.
Radio talk show host Alex Jones.
Alex Jones.
Jones is the wildly popular conspiracy theorist.
Radio talk show host and conspiracy theorist Alex Jones.
Deeply, I think, racist.
I just got called racist by MSNBC.
I don't want that man to have a gun.
1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms.
The Alex Jones Show. Watch the free stream live at Infowars.com/show. We have ended the big mega sale, the biggest in our history. Now, we have kept 3 items, though, this week. That's Brain Force, while supplies last, the amazing nootropic for $17.76, normally $29. Leading competitors that have similar formulas are $60 to $70 to $80. So we're already a great deal at that price. It has some ingredients that are controlled or prescription in Europe. That's how powerful it is. Read about it for yourself at InfoWarsLife.com. That's 40% off. DNA Force, our flagship product. It's a big deal to offer 30% off on that. We're extending that. And then Vitamin Mineral Fusion. All the vitamins, all the minerals, the amino acids, the cofactors to help upload it. Great tasting fruit punch. Organically flavored. There's nothing else out there it's like it. It's amazing. It's plant-derived minerals. InfoWarsLife.com. That's 30% off. But I'm going to go further. Boom, here it is. Normally you sign up for auto ship, you get 10% off. You still get that on top of it. I'm doing free shipping on everything. Whether it's one Hillary for Prison shirt or a Bill Clinton rape shirt or whatever it is, whatever informational warfare weapon you want to help spread the word and meet like-minded people, free shipping store-wide. Free shipping store-wide. Again, ladies and gentlemen, you can get 40% off on Brain Force. You can get 30% off on DNA Force. I'm not going to sit here and belabor this. People should really go read and see the hundreds of studies that are there breaking down just what BioPQQ does and why this is such an amazing nutraceutical and why it's so important that folks take it daily, because the compounds in this are just amazing. I mean, you just know they're from God. But I'm not going to get into the science. Go to InfoWarsLife.com. Go there to the page for yourself, and you can check it all out at InfoWarsLife.com. InfoWarsStore.com is the umbrella site, and your purchases make it possible, everything we do here. So I want to thank you all for your support, your prayers, and so much more.
We're not even able to post probably half of the reviews that come in. And the reason why is because if anyone mentions a disease or they got better from a disease, the third-party review sites that we subcontract out to that monitor these reviews, if there's any mention of a disease or anything in there, it can't go up online because of the regulations with the FDA. So please feel free to call in as much as you want. We love hearing about your stories. And this is just DNA Force, but You know, the best thing that I love to do and the best thing I tell people to do is just go online, InfoWarsLife.com, and just read all the reviews.